afternoon, everybody. My name is Chris Wren. I'm the advisory of the XDS. Let's try that again. I'm the chair of the XDS Advisory Committee. Can you tell I missed lunch today? And now for something completely different. We thought it would be interesting to bring the dream team of external development up on the stage and try to cover the broad spectrum of the fundamentals for those of you who might be more in the novice category of getting into external development, all the way up to more the advanced level and where we see the industry pushing the envelope for external development. So without further ado, I am going to bring up a few fine people. Now, unfortunately, not everyone is here today, but most of the crew is here. So one at a time, we'll bring up Mr. Anton from Guerrilla Games. Come on up, Anton. We have Dilberman from Capcom. We have Matt Ringy from WB Turbine. Hopefully, if she's in the room, we have Lois Wang from DNA. Lois, hi, Lois. Come on up. Su-Cheng Wu from Sony. We have Ricard Lind from Activision. Sam Carlisle from Microsoft. We have Grayson Chalmers, no longer with Blizzard, now with Riot. I really need to update this slide. And last but not least, please be in the room. Do we have Astrid? We have Astrid coming up from Spil Games in Amsterdam. Welcome, everybody, and our fine advisory committee. And I will say that I truly put these guys to task throughout the year. I mean, they're the ones that help guide and shape this event, deliver the level of quality that we do. And they've spent the last 6 weeks or so peer reviewing all of the presentations that you're experiencing over the next 3 days. So last round of applause for these guys, for all the hard work that they do. So I figure there's probably more than 100 years of external development experience on this stage. How does that make you guys feel? Old. Kind of old? Astrid's like, no, I'm just graduated high school. Come on. No, just kidding. All right, guys. Well, we're going to jump right into it. And, you know, I think one question, as an industry professional myself, I get is, what are the inner workings of your organization? So how do you individually support external development for your teams, for your studios, for your company? So for example, are you in a central role? Are you embedded with the teams? And this is all very informal and casual, so please, if you have the mic or pass it around. So how do you support external dev within your organization? How does that work? Who would like to start?
I'm happy to start, yeah.
Anton.
Yeah, I'm the head of outsourcing at Guerrilla Games in Amsterdam, and I try to do as little as possible. So I have a great team of assistant art directors that handle all the reviews for all the art assets that we have been outsourcing, in particular for the Killzone franchise and now for Horizon Zero Dawn. So we have an amazing guy for characters, another amazing guy for robots, another for props and building blocks, for example. And they are in the sort of direct contact on a day-to-day basis with the vendors. And I let them just do their thing because that's what they've been hired to do. And what I try to do is make sure that they're able to work as efficiently as possible by sort of securing the capacity ahead of time, right? So instead of asking for 50 artists out of the blue, even, yeah, some of you vendors in here, you know that I've been talking to you guys about a year from now or 2 years from now. So I want to get that capacity booked up before my competition, which is sitting here on stage before you guys do, right? And that sort of makes the future easier for just I'll basically thanking myself in the future and my team. They can be focusing on doing what they do best.
Good. All right. Thank you, Anton. Who else would like to talk a little bit about their role, how they support external development within their organization?
Yeah. So
Astrid?
I think I might not be a direct competitor to you because Spil Games, we publish web and mobile games. And I have to say that Spil Games has mainly done more smaller games than one of the AAA games that you guys have been developing. And in my role as a licensing manager, but also as producer at Spil, I try to make sure, like I'm the main point of contact with the teams, and I also get to scout for the studios like I'm doing right now at XDS to find the right fit for our projects. And once we have found the right fit of a studio, I try to make sure that we get on the same level, that we feel comfortable with each other, and that there's teamwork going on, and that all the right documents, all the things that need to be set in stone to be able to just go on and develop, I make sure that these documents are also done right, so we can have a smooth process.
All right, thank you, Astrid. Grayson?
Jump in on that. So I think, so I've been in the outsource capacity at Sony Online, Blizzard now, right? And I think to me, I technically represent a sort of a central force of outsourcing, but to me in my mind, I want it to feel, I feel as product focused as possible and as grassroots as possible. So even though we're sort of, me and the team represent a central force, lots of embedded people on each project that to the project development team feel it's part of their own team. I really want it to be, everything that we do is in service of that, of the product, to make sure it's all, you know, I mean, what we do is make, at least in my situation, it's making art for each project, and so that it's bigger and better and more awesome.
Okay, good. One more contribution. Go ahead, Dilbert.
So I'm from Capcom Game Studio Vancouver. I'm a senior project manager for an unannounced AAA PC console product coming out potentially in the near future. Can't talk about it. We don't have an outsource manager. We focus on, I kind of look at it as large-scale production, so we treat it no differently than in our internal production. So our leads are an art director, our tech artists, all our infrastructure is in support of large-scale external and internal development.
Okay, perfect. All right, thanks, guys. Well, let's move on to the next question. I think something that some people are curious, especially those who haven't gone down the path of pursuing external development. I mean, you look at the challenges involved in this with respect to culture, communication, time zones, technical integration. Why do you guys do it? Why are we pursuing this very difficult and stressful practice of external development? What are some core business reasons as to why you do external development? Matt, please.
Well, for us, we started back with the MMOs, and we just had such a volume of work that we needed to get done for the projects and the milestones that would come up. So a lot of it back in the day for us had to do with just volume. We didn't have the ability to ramp the team sizes to the scale that we needed. Sometimes we didn't even have the expertise in-house for the different projects that we were working on. So for us, it was definitely a scale of volume. And in recent years, that's kind of transitioned to skill set for us now as we've moved into mobile. So yeah, I guess the skill sets and the disciplines are changing for us.
Yeah. Well, I'm Lois. I'm from DNA. I think when I first joined XDS at night, and I share my horror story to all the outsourcing manager. So we come from mobile. At the time, I was managing 13 projects, and each of the project has very different art style, different location of the team, and they all need different type of volume of assets. So that's why we need outsourcing to really fill in not just the quantity of the asset, but also finding some partner who can actually duplicate or multiply the same style and then the same discipline for the game team. And for mobile, our game cycle, especially 2 years ago, it was 6 to 8 months per product, and then we have to release it. So that's also something that we're looking for efficiency, to have more experienced partner to help us to really achieve the goal. Yeah.
Hi, I'm Su Chen from Sony Interactive Entertainment. So to me, it feels very much like playing a video game itself. I don't know if you guys feel the same. You have multiple resources and multiple challenges. You have to distribute and keep them on track. And so for us, would be inside of Sony, there are different game studios that actually have a fully staffed outsourced team. For example, Gorilla, Naughty Dog, they are full-blown. So from our group perspective, we'll be looking at, is there any collective bargain we can talk about? Is there any government incentive that we can discuss and get on? All the way to independent, individual second-party titles that would leverage Sony's kind of outsourcing relationship and contract and giving them a schedule. So, or sometimes also comparing budget. You know, if certain titles spend this much, well, how much maybe you could plan for yours. So in a way, to me, why doing this is kind of like playing a Civilization, some kind of video game too. So it is fun.
Interesting. Sam?
I'm Sam from Microsoft, and I work in a very similar position, similar challenges as Xusheng. I think part of the role I do is to do with just the size of the machine. Microsoft has a lot of moving parts, and from procurement through to the outsource managers, through to the external teams themselves, and security and the rest, there is a lot of different phases involved. And having one figure in the middle that keeps an eye on everything that's going on makes that a lot easier. The one point of contact in a large company can be a very lovely thing because people move around. For me, one of the things I think outsourcing does is it manages risk. This industry has gone through a lot of periods where we've had large amounts of layoffs and large amounts of fluctuations. And it was funny, when I first started in outsourcing, it was with an in-source team at our studio in India. And when it was first put to the studio that they were going to be doing this, the first question that was asked was, when do I lose my job? By the artists. And that was always the risk. But the thing is that it does the opposite. It allows the scale up and the scale down to be managed by teams and companies that are designed around scaling up and scaling down. It allows that reactivity to take place and be managed properly, and that makes your core teams more stable. That adds that level of stability, and it means that we see less in the terms of layoffs and in terms of the ups and downs that we get in this industry. So for me, one, it's wonderful to work with incredibly talented people, and it's always a pleasure. I love watching artwork come in. Two, it is a stabilizer as well as a means to scope.
Great. Last answer, Ricardo.
Yeah, so I'm just going to say quickly. I think scalability was mentioned. I think that's very important, up and down. But I also would say, even though I work for the Call of Duty franchise, and quality is number one, right? Always the best quality is always needed. And our internal team is experts at what they do, and very talented team. But at times, there's also need for external talent. There's expertise that we don't have internally. Either there is a contract or an outsourcing, a larger studio. Just reaching out and finding those people, even though on the other side of the planet, you can't always find the local talent that you need, right? And that's part of this whole collaboration, right? So.
Okay, good. So just a quick show of hands, which of you, or who of you would say that building the games today at the scope of and complexity that they are would be impossible without some level of external development? Okay, so we are now established, thank you. So I'm sure you're all taking a number of meetings with different service providers this week, and I'm curious, and probably some people in the audience are curious as well. When you're assessing new prospective partners, what are some of the top or most important criteria you use for evaluation, and how do you measure those criteria? So what are the top things you're looking for?
Yeah, so for us, Spil Games is mostly actually looking for preferably full game development studios who can do the whole shebang for us. Of course, sometimes certain games require certain animation skills or different art styles, so we're definitely open to having art outsourcing specifically. But when talking to them, I like to ask them about their art process, how they start with building that up, what we can expect, how many people are there, how many people do they dedicate to art. So sometimes it's like 600 people, but only like 200 for art, for example. And I try to figure out their way of working, and sometimes they're very flexible, and other times they will have kind of strict house rules as to what they prefer. So as much as I can, I will try to get a clear image of how they're actually trying to represent themselves towards me. So most of the time you only get like half an hour to meet up with them, and then you get some follow-ups. But during the meeting, I'm trying to find out how they want to represent themselves to me, and I try to, regarding the projects I'm scouting for, I will try to ask how they would work with that.
Interesting. Okay, thanks, Astrid. Anyone else? Matt?
I think for us, the ability to communicate and be able to come up with creative problems, answers to problems that are out there are probably two of the top. I think that once we find a vendor that actually understands kind of what we're trying to achieve as a game team and can kind of articulate the problems and how they can help us, those are some of the key things that we take away from that. I'd say most of the sort of artistic, disputes or challenges that you come across with working with a new vendor can be solved through being able to kind of talk through all of those issues that come up. So if you're not a good communicator, then we're never going to be able to work on the aesthetics or some of the tougher problems or challenges that come up. So yeah, communication.
Okay, let's have one more on this one. Dilber?
Yeah, you might have saved me a lot of time, Chris, with that question, even though it's loaded and I could do a whole PowerPoint presentation at XDS on that. But so I'm just going to stick with the basics. I get a lot of portfolios from a lot of different potential partners, and before I can even move forward into any kind of due diligence step, the first thing that I want to see in a portfolio is just even one asset that wows me. So just as a good rule of thumb for anyone who's interested in working with a potential client, make sure your portfolio has at least 1, 2, or 3 items that can wow your client. Because I often get the response that, oh, we're working on some new stuff, but it's under NDA, we can't show it to you. But honestly, like, you can put at least 1 or 2 items, even if it's custom work or a demo, especially if you're like soliciting clients for large-scale production, then it's in your investment to do that. But I will never take the next step into due diligence until I see at least 1 or 2 items in a portfolio that wows me.
Okay, cool. So along the same lines, and sorry, I do want to mention, guys, we will take questions from the audience in the last 5 minutes, so get your questions ready. So along the same lines, guys, what do you feel are the biggest opportunities that service providers have today? So this might be in relation to services they offer, capabilities that they have in-house, certain behaviors you're seeing, but really, like, what are the biggest opportunities on the table for external partners today? Grayson's got a devious smile on his face.
I'm going to speak totally selfishly, but we cannot find enough particle. I feel like the technical side of game development, to me, even as a developer internally, has always been a very sort of unique skill. So technical artists, effects artists, that sort of folks. So definitely effects artists, we cannot find enough of them, so that's pretty huge. There's a lot of opportunity, I think, in that space. The other one is hand-keyed animation. We've met a lot of mocap folks and a lot of sort of realistic animation studios, but I think there's still a lot of room to grow in the sort of stylized hand-keyed animation space.
You just set up 5 more meetings for yourself after that answer.
Why do you think I answered it? Come find me if you're an effects vendor.
Anyone else, guys? So the biggest opportunities for external partners today?
I have a little bit different aspect because, for me working in the mobile, we have so many different style, and then each one of the teams, sometimes it's 2D, sometimes it's 3D, all the process is different. And what I usually looking for the vendor is, it's really about the problem-solving attitude, and able to ask questions and able to continue try and communicate. Because I run into some of the situation, some of my team is younger, that may be their first outsourcing experience, but if I pair them up with some more experienced vendor, they're able to help them and ask right question to really narrow down what the direction we're going for. And that will be something that, for me as an outsourcing manager, to really appreciate that kind of partnership. So that's something, it's a stronger management team, more problem solving or stronger lead kind of structure that will really help the relationship. Yeah.
Cool. Anyone else? Sam?
I'll just add to Grayson's VFX artist. In-game VFX artist is a drought. Let's have some more. Also, I think studios that can take more ownership and start to do more from grey box through to complete and adding in the polishing levels, those kind of teams will become more and more sought after. They're already fairly sought after now, but I think as we move into much more service, games as a service, as we move into games with much longer tails, we'll see a lot more live operations, and we'll see a lot more outsourced games that are in existence where the core team has moved on to the next shiny new game, but the game is still profitable. That will need to be serviced with content, monetized content, and it will need to evolve to keep the brand and keep the game fresh. And I think we'll start to see outsourced teams that can really own that will become more and more in demand, I think, long term.
Okay. Sucheng, did you have one more?
Sure.
And then Astrid will move over.
So I think kind of echoing what Sam was talking about, I think it's whatever service you are providing, look at upstream and downstream. Like if you were able to provide like an integrated section of a few services, I think that's very helpful. Like, you know, if you're doing props, can you also then do, you know, environments, and then can you actually integrate? Can you actually deal with design mesh change? Can you, if you're doing characters, can you actually put AI on it? You know, can you literally take care of all the NPCs? So we're finding, you know, it's not so much just the last era was, hey, you're a superstar, you come in here, you produce amazing props, amazing character, amazing vehicle, but to some degree to simplify the outsourced supervising overhead in many ways. Like if I can go to one shop and I can continue to kind of expand that service kind of value chain, that would be very helpful. So.
Interesting. Astrid, do you have something to add?
So the thing I want to add real quick is that I think vendors can also have a great opportunity into being more creative and innovative with game design, because sometimes we get pitches and most of the time we reject them because they're just as all the other games that are in the mobile market. Mm-hmm. And we are also trying to stimulate and teach them to just think outside of the box, or maybe take a familiar mechanic from somewhere, but then add something unique that gives users from your competitor a reason to start with to start playing your game. So that would be something that could really wow us if you would introduce some new stuff and some fresh mechanics to the bunch.
More innovation. Okay, great, thanks guys. So looking at the current state of external development for your organizations, without mentioning specific teams or studios, or maybe you can mention the games if they've launched, where do you guys see your internal teams really pushing the envelope in terms of how they're engaging their external partners? So these are examples where teams are pushing the envelope, innovating. Maybe they're taking calculated risks, but they're really taking external development to the next level. Where are you guys seeing those examples today? Are you seeing those examples today?
Well, so the latest product I've been working on is Horizon Zero Dawn, and it's shipping in February next year. So we're sort of ramping down the production right now. And I believe we have been pushing the envelope. So insofar as sort of 3D art assets, we outsourced more than 40,000 man days of work. So if anyone has beat
so was that 40? That was 40,000.
40,000.
Okay.
And that's only 3D art, like props, building blocks, characters, weapons, robots, not counting cinematics. So we've really been pushing it that we don't really make those type of assets internally anymore. We do all the terrains, all the vegetation, the skies, all the nature basically in-house. But art production is basically external. And we, of course, we do all the innovation, come up with the workflows, and the art direction and design for it. So we really try to sort of distill the, so what we do internally is really the core. It's really like designing things, coming up with the look and the concept. But then the actual, the time-consuming task of churning through thousands and thousands of props and building blocks, or spending 300 days working on a robot with 64 destructible parts and 8 LODs. That time is better spent on the other side of the world, I think, which means that we can just make a game that is a lot bigger with a larger scope. It has a lot more detail and more fidelity, and the team can focus on fixing bugs and working closer with the designers on actually making the sort of the core gameplay, the second to second and minute to minute, really fun and engaging, right? As opposed to just sitting in a corner working on one robot for like 2 years.
Okay. Anyone else? Su-Cheng?
So I think from our perspective, we're seeing teams creating a huge open world kind of content and literally needing to experiment and starting to do code development. So these are probably more of the newer frontier about enlisting additional team that's literally doing game code development with one of our studios. So there definitely some learning curve and lesson learned there and still in progress. Other area was, for our group, I think the KPI has been helpful for us. We are now looking at other Sony groups to trying to figure out can we improve the net terms, which is no promise, but we're talking to legal and finance about that, and different government incentive programs that we're looking at. So I think the organization is recognizing outsourcing is really important. So we're just having actually one of our internal kickoff this time as well. So.
Okay, thanks guys. So one last question before we do some Q&A from the audience. So looking into your crystal ball, what is your prediction for how you see external development and the need for it changing over the next 5 years, so the foreseeable future? Where do you see the evolution over the next 5 years? Dilber?
I think I spoke about this in past XDSs, but I kind of envision an environment where we're consistently in a state of distributing our workforce, so that we're in a constant state of distributing development, as opposed to we work internally, we do a bunch of things, and we're like, okay, now we're going to outsource. So this is something that I'm working with my team on right now, is to think in terms of being in a constant state of scalability, if you will.
For me, I think integration, it was distributed, but even more integrated. I think for most vendors, first perfect the craft. If we send you characters, vehicles, props, or in pieces, you can do it very well. But ideally, your studio's technical and management competency can also go up, so you can start taking more of an end-to-end chunk. So I think that would be very helpful. Other areas would be, literally having the ability to also deal with designers and programmers, because that's a total different kind of iteration. So in the end goal, I think in the next 5 years, if the industry can push, so not only distribute it, but integrate it, but inside of the project, you can increase the iterations, because quality is equal how many more iterations you can get. So if we can integrate better, you iterate more, and that's sort of what I see we're going.
Interesting. Okay. Did you have a final answer, Lois?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I think there's one possibility. So for a mobile game that we're running a lot of live operation, and that's one of the major assets required that from vendor support. But recently, there's actually more and more opportunity that we're also shifting some of the live operation towards a vendor or someone who can also run the content with the original developer. So that's something potentially can be a change on the mobile side. It's just we keep reallocating the resource, and then the core team move on to new content or changing some other sort of good game mechanic and then different strategy. But we leave the game to run longer, and then having external support on that. Yeah.
Okay, excellent. And Grayson, final answer?
Yeah, just really quick. I don't. actually in my head, I don't see too much change more than just scale. I have a feeling that games is going to continue to grow as a space. Like there's always going to be new sort of people entering it as a market, and so I just feel like scale is going to be drastic, like bigger than we even believe it is. So I have this feeling that like even you'll take an internal team where there's X number of artists at Blizzard, but maybe the games get bigger, but Blizzard or Riot doesn't necessarily hire more artists. Maybe there's more vendors, and I really hope that as we scale that we really get good at, what we're all trying to do here, right? The communication, the feedback, making sure it's a good ethical sort of business approach, because I just have this feeling it's going to be tenfold in 5 years or more. And as new tech comes into the space with, 4K, we're going to need more detail. VR, it's going to be the same situation where you're going to need new specialties, new talents, just more. And there's even markets that we haven't even tapped into. I believe there's corners of this world that there's artists hiding that are going to make games that we don't even know about yet. So
it sounds like we need to do part 2 of this panel next year.
There's going to be 4 different XDSs, I think, in 5 years. Yeah.
All right. Well, please, guys, thank you for your time today. Really appreciate it. Cheers.